Okay, welcome back. We are going through our March Madness bracket.
March Madness.
We've already ruled out of our 8 games, Gears of War Judgment, gone. God of War Ascension, off the list. Again, fiercely competitive. Obviously, these are all going to be great games.
All going to be good games, but
we have to make some cuts. So now we're going over to our next corner of our bracket, and we're taking a look at StarCraft 2 Heart of the Swarm, sequel to the game of the decade.
Right, yeah.
Versus Lost Planet 3. Now, you already know, and all my friends already know how I'm voting in this one.
I mean, I think it's going to be hard to actually argue with you on this one. I mean, StarCraft is great, and
but let's talk about Lost Planet.
All right, let's talk about Lost Planet. Just what StarCraft is. So Lost Planet's a franchise I haven't put a lot of time into. It's been kind of a good third-person shooter, kind of in the kind of 80 range, kind of rating. So
now Lost Planet 2 had some pretty fun co-op.
Yep.
And the boss fights are pretty, enjoyable in that game. That's one of the things that I wish that Dead Space had borrowed a little heavier from.
I'm playing Dead Space 3 less right now.
Dead Space borrowed a lot from Lost Planet. So if there's one good thing about the Lost Planet franchise, perhaps it's that it inspired the Dead Space game. But so from the icy planet to there's levels in Dead Space 3 where you have body temperature that you have to manage versus the heat resources here.
Yep.
To the bosses with the orange glowy parts that you have to shoot at, all sorts of similarities. But we're not talking about Dead Space. Lost Planet, some of the things I really enjoyed was the co-op gameplay. I thought the setting was pretty unique previous to this game. The ice planet Hoth, it's great fantasy to live out, and fighting in those loader mechs, like getting in a giant loader and marching through and fighting. Really cool stuff going on there.
So how do you think the 3's going to live up to the franchise?
So the thing about the Lost Planet franchise is it's interesting. I enjoy it when I'm playing it, but it's not in the same caliber as these other games I'm looking at. I mean, it's a franchise, and it obviously makes money, but I don't put it in the same camp as God of War, Gears of War, BioShock.
Yeah, they really haven't been able to kind of crest that kind of high 80s, kind of 90 rated experience yet. And so I think it's going to be tough for it to kind of hang with games like StarCraft from kind of some of the best development houses in the world. And so
why are they doing it? Why are they launching this guy in March?
It's a great question.
This is one of the most the poster child game for summertime.
You would think these guys would want to kind of move away from some of these heavy hitters and try and carve out a nice little 2-week window sometime in the later spring or summer time frame, and hope to kind of gather some of that heat from kind of a lack of competition. I don't know why they wouldn't. We should do another segment sometime on kind of games
psychology.
Games releasing on top of each other. I hope it does well. I hope that they can continue increasing and improving the franchise. But I think right now it's going to be tough to put Lost Planet above StarCraft.
Yeah. Well, you can check out this video on YouTube. Search for Lost Planet trailer. But jumping from one sci-fi dudes and space marines and mechs to another, let's take a look at StarCraft. So, StarCraft 2 Heart of the Swarm. I have sunk so many hours into
I know you have.
Into Wings of Liberty. It's an excellent game, from the competitive multiplayer and the balance to the excellent matchmaking, so that it doesn't matter if you're unskilled or totally skilled. It's always going to be a knife fight in the closet. The matches are always going to be super fun. And sometimes you're ahead and sometimes you're behind, but it's just great multiplayer, and it's balanced across all leagues and levels. When you're in the lower leagues, you get players who try crazy strategies, but they work sometimes because you're up against someone who doesn't know it. Whereas when you're in the higher leagues, it's more like watching a game of chess, where you're watching them play and you know what their next moves are going to be 3 moves down the line, but it's just really exciting to watch that flawless execution. So they're introducing new units, and they're introducing new twists on the competitive multiplayer. So we'll see if that's balanced, but they've been running a beta for a year.
Yeah, that's one of the the advantages Blizzard has, is that they take really good care of their franchises. They have a great cash cow in World of Warcraft that allows them to kind of really take their development time with some of these franchises, and then they deliver. They don't waste that time, and they use it iterating and improving upon the experience. We have a lot of friends who work at Blizzard on these franchises, and they do a great job. And so I think Heart of the Swarm is going to be really entertaining. I'm really looking forward to the campaign. I thought what StarCraft 2 did with the campaign was phenomenal. Taking kind of cues from Wing Commander and other franchises, in terms of their kind of storytelling and ship exploration.
Light RPG.
Yeah, it was like a lot of fun. You know, we always had the aspiration to kind of do that working on Command and Conquer. Just never had kind of the time or sometimes the discipline to really, do what it takes to develop an RTS of this kind. So, I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be good. I think it's going to be well rated.
$40.
Yeah, you're going to get a lot of value. You know, as we kind of move StarCraft in this bracket, I'm going to be curious kind of how it matches up because, you know, Blizzard, I think, Diablo 3 was probably the first not 90 rated game ever, which is pretty surprising.
How many innocents have you killed?
You know, is this going to be kind of high 80s and kind of move them into that camp? Or do we think this is going to crest 90s again?
No, because
StarCraft 2 did.
Exactly, because StarCraft 2, and this is a expansion pack. It feels like a game.
You know, are generally rated a little bit lower than their core product. We saw that a lot.
But because this is so much more than an expansion pack in terms of player value, full-fledged campaign, revamping competitive multiplayer, it's like the expectations for the amount of content are going to grossly exceed. The creative risks that they're taking are minimized based on the success of StarCraft 2. So I think this is going to be rewarded.
Do you think this is going to be like? Do you think this is going to be the brood war of kind of StarCraft 1? Wow.
I have incredibly high expectations.
All right.
It's a best-in-class cinematics team, a best-in-class design and competitive multiplayer and balance team. The storytelling is excellent. There's just so much to look forward to in this game.
All right.
So this one could go all the way.
I hope it's really good, and we will continue to debate as I think we both agree StarCraft moves forward.
Advances. So that takes us on into the final corner of our bracket. We got StarCraft making it. Now we're taking a look at Company of Heroes, the other RTS contender.
Yep.
Boy, wouldn't that be interesting if Company of Heroes 2 ends up facing off against StarCraft 2 in this
Well,
bracket
I mean,
here.
Company Heroes 1 is the highest rated RTS of all time. I mean, you can argue sales and all that. Obviously, it didn't...
Cultural significance, personal preference.
Yeah, it may not have left the same lasting impact that, you know, Command and Conquer or StarCraft.
But this is a Metascore bracket.
But this is a Metascore bracket. And we're talking about kind of execution on, you know, technology and kind of uniqueness in the marketplace and the destructible environments they did. Company Heroes just hit it with a laser focus. Yeah. And Company Heroes 2 obviously has had a very difficult development just with their publisher, THQ, obviously, and a lot of the drama that's happened there.
Now, for context, this is in the bracket. It's going to be going up against SimCity. We should mention that as we continue talking about Company of Heroes 2. Yep. But facing off against the new SimCity. But Company of Heroes.
So, yeah, I mean, for me, this was one of my favorite RTSs of really the last decade or so. I think it deserved the 96, 95 rating they got out of the first one.
Now, what was it that was so great about it? Was it the balance? Was it the setting?
I think it was the atmosphere of just you felt like you were in those trenches, right. Managing those soldiers and tanks. The kind of unpredictability that would happen with people flanking you and tanks getting injured and going off path. The destructible environments. I mean, you would play a map. It would start as a kind of village essentially, and by the end of it being shelled with artillery and tanks driving over everything and snipers being shot out of buildings, it was just a wasteland. Yep. And it was a similar experience you got kind of when Battlefield started doing a lot of their destructible environments, where you'd finish a multiplayer match and it's just a complete destroyed, and you're like, oh my gosh, a real battle took place here, which is something that you don't really get from a lot of the other RTS games. When you look at some of these shots, and it's like, that looks like a real environment. That looks like shots from Band of Brothers or real footage from the war. And so I think they just delivered on the fiction so well, and the gameplay was just really unique. It was just so tactical. I mean, every decision you made about where you lined up a soldier's firing arc for an MG, or where you placed a sniper when you snuck across the street, artillery. Just every decision mattered. It just felt so tense every time you had to make a decision.
And they're promising to double down on that. They're saying that an individual unit, you'll feel an emotional connection to one guy. You'll see one tank rolling in and you'll be terrified. That's never a feeling that you get in a game like StarCraft. You see one siege tank and you're like, no big deal.
Yeah.
Got it.
I mean, when you had like a group of soldiers in Company Heroes and a tiger tank rolled up, it's like, oh my god, tiger tank, and you like run away.
So it's a very different kind of experience.
And I mean, you just look at, and just again, you just watch it, and it's just beautiful. I mean, everything they did with it. And now it's, 3 or 4 years later. So I really hope they've improved upon all that. And again, they've had, a tough development time with their publisher, but we know some of the guys on that team too, and they are pro guys. And I think that, I think Sega now kind of bailed out Relic, and they've done a great job with Creative Assembly and those RTS games. So I really hope that the quality can stay up. And
it's an exciting new RTS bullpen, actually.
Yeah, and so, I mean, I really hope that Sega gives them the chance to finish this out right. And I'm really looking forward to playing this. I'm going to be putting a lot of time into Company Heroes too.
And it's facing off against SimCity. Now, SimCity is an interesting one because this is not a game. I mean, gamers love this game, but it is not a game in the traditional sense. I mean, you can create objectives for yourself if you say, I want to build a big city or I want to be able to launch a tornado, but it's not. There's very little story. It's light story. It's a simulation. It's a sandbox game, and it's being evaluated against 7 other, serious franchises.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, one version of a long line of a classic franchise, but you always talked about it being a reboot in a sense.
Yeah, I mean, they're not calling it SimCity 5. They're calling it SimCity.
Mm-hmm.
They've taken a lot of liberties with, changing the visual style, and they've put a ton of energy into the under the hood systems. So I got a chance to play in the beta test, and you can add layers to the video to see. Or rather to the feed to see like where your garbage is going, where your power is going, like all the simulation layers that are going on in the game. You can actually visualize those and check them out. They added this like view box mode, so it sort of feels like you're in a city planner's office looking at a model of a city. It's a great art style for the game, and it feels friendly and cool.
Yeah, I think it's really tough trying to judge. I think if you're judging sales, I think that SimCity will definitely.
That's gonna have a long tail.
Yeah, I think it's gonna outshine Company Heroes. They're probably gonna have expansion packs for it. They're gonna develop this into a franchise the way that EA knows how, like they've done with The Sims. In terms of kind of Metacritic score, it's tough because you gotta wonder.
Well, The Sims has a high Metascore.
They do. I think
the
initial versions of The Sims got high Metacritic scores because it was just a very well executed and kind of new, surprising franchise for the industry. SimCity, it's going to come with a lot of expectations, and everyone has kind of nostalgic memories of playing SimCity, and everyone's going to kind of want a different SimCity experience, especially a lot of these kind of reviewers who remember it from growing up and when they were playing it back in the day. So it's tough to judge if SimCity is going to get kind of the 90-plus Metacritic score that I think it's going to need personally to beat out Company Heroes. I think Company Heroes, as we said, 95, 96 the first one, assuming they maintain kind of what made it that in the first one. Maybe they drop a few because it's been a few years and technology might be showing its age. But I could see Company Heroes, if they're able to finish this out right, getting 90-plus. I don't necessarily see SimCity getting 90+.
We had Sid Meier come and give a talk at work.
That's right.
He came to Zynga and he was telling us about different design policy principles. And one of the things that stuck with me was he was talking about like some games are fun for the player. That's great. Other games are fun for the designer. Like it's really fun to just design this game.
Yeah.
And there's a third type of game which is really fun for the computer. And when you think about a game like SimCity, it's like, who's really having fun in SimCity? Is it the designer? No, there's nothing to design in that game. It's just spreadsheets, balance. Is it the player? Sure, it's not a really guided experience, but the player can find ways to have fun with it. But damn, the computer's having a great time in SimCity. He's got all these simulations.
Computer gives it a 98.
Now, Sid Meier would have described that as a weakness, a pitfall that you could fall into. But SimCity might be able to overturn it.
Yeah, I think it'll be a good game. I think that it will probably help revitalize the franchise. If we're just talking kind of gamers and Metacritic score right now, though. I think Company of Heroes has
Company of
has
Heroes
the edge.
is gonna win the Metascore battle. I'm with you. We haven't had much strife so far.
I think we'll start to get there.
I think SimCity is going to be
the next round.
SimCity is going to be a great game. It's going to be around forever. It's going to make tons of money, and I'm going to love playing it. But you're right. If we're looking at Metascore, it's Company of Heroes. So that brings us to the final four, which we will be picking up in the next episode of our podcast. But taking a look here, we are back with BioShock beating out Gears of War, Tomb Raider beating out God of War, StarCraft killing off Lost Planet, and Company of Heroes beating out SimCity. So we're going to be taking a look at BioShock versus Tomb Raider.
Oh, wow.
Two excellent console, can we call them action RPGs? I don't know.
I probably wouldn't throw RPG in there. Maybe.
They both have light RPG elements.
Action adventure,
third person. Very exciting stuff. And then over here we've got two RTS contenders, Company of Heroes and StarCraft. Is this showing our bias as previous RTS developers
could be.
and as PC gamers?
Honestly, I'd be surprised if we're wrong on that first bracket. But
so we're gonna have the RTS showdown, the action adventure showdown, and then only one will win.
Only one. Who will it be?
Yeah,
gotta tune in next time.
So cool. Anyways, thanks for staying with us, and come back next time for the exciting conclusion of March Madness.
March Madness 2013.